I'll get started with the introduction. Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon to everybody here. Welcome to another SpunkGo webinar. Today's speaker is Pavitra Raja. Pavitra leads the strategic program, content, advocacy, and engagement at the World Economic Forum. It is my greatest pleasure to welcome Pavitra to talk about international development sector, her journey, and how to get in. Just a side note, Q&A will be done in the chat feature after her presentation, but do feel free to leave questions during the presentation. SpunkGo is an all-girls global student organization where proceeds go to charity. And with that, the floor is now yours, Pavitra.
Thank you so much, Netra. Hi, everyone. So exciting to have all of you people as part of this conversation. Please do it right in the chat who you are, where you're from. I'm curious to see who is on this chat. Well, I can't see you, so at least I'd like to know where you're from. And as Netra said, don't be shy and ask questions. It's clear. So I love that, Tracy. Hi. I'm right now based in Geneva, Switzerland, but I've had a time today and just been returned. So apologies if I don't always make sense. I'm jet lagged, I'm tired, but I'm super excited to be here. So let me get started with how many of you know what international development and international relations is? You have an idea, raise a hand if you kind of have an idea, reason, feature, or you have no idea what this is and you're like, I'm just here to learn a bit more.
So sorry to interrupt you, but I think the mic is just a little bit bad right now. It was pretty good a while ago.
No worries. Is this any better?
Yes, this is much better. Thanks so much.
I think my computer is also jet lagged, so apologies on behalf of my computer. So I had a quick question. How many of you kind of have an idea of what international affairs, international relations are? Just give me a virtual hand up, or you're just here to kind of figure that out and see if this is the right path for you. You can use your virtual hand. Okay, I'm going to say this is rather a new topic area for most of you. So let me just give you a bit of an understanding of what this is, who I am, and why this might matter to you. So this is a broad topic area. International relations can be anything between member states or states to different countries. It could be work that the UN is doing. It could be work around the World Bank. So all of these things kind of fall within the international relations sector. It's like, how can different countries work and cooperate with each other for a better planet and a better society as well. So that kind of very in one sentence, I'm going to stop there and maybe go into a little bit about my journey. That might give you a bit of an understanding and then figure out this is the right career path for you. So my name is Pavitra Raja, as Netra has already introduced me. I work for the World Economic Forum in Switzerland, which is quite a lovely place to work at. But most people don't quite understand how did I get into this organization? How did I work for the UN previously? What is this all about? So let me introduce you to maybe something that you might want to do in the future. So I am a lawyer by training. I studied at law school. I studied international relations and affairs at university. I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life when I was a teenager. So Netra, I'm like incredibly impressed by what you're doing. Like I just knew that I had this fire to do something and change the world, as I think a lot of us have that, right? So we all want to do something, want to contribute. And I certainly had that fire. I had no idea how I would make that fire happen and what I would do with that fire. So I ended up talking to a friend of mine when I was 15. I was like, you know, this UN thing is really cool. I'm going to go work for the UN one day. And this is when I was studying in Australia. I've had the privilege of living in different countries, having the privilege of work with different people. But this part of the story happens in Australia when I was 15, which is on the other side of the world. And he said to me, UN, big dreams, like that's never going to happen for you. And that's what most women, especially women of color, are told. You're dreaming too big. This is probably not going to happen. But, you know, dream away. It's fine. Go for it. Back then, I didn't know what I know now, which is this organization, this tech sector is open to everyone. You just need to figure out how to get in there. So fast forward 10 years, my big dreams did come true. I did work for the United Nations. It was incredible. I still remember my first day at the Palais des Nations in Geneva, Switzerland, and I I did cry a little bit in the bathroom because I was so excited and nervous. I cannot believe I just admitted that to a bunch of people, but it was really an incredible experience. A dream was coming true. And I got to work there for 2 years, and I got to do some groundbreaking things. And I had the support of some amazing people. But another thing that I realized is that your dream when you're 15 doesn't always mean that's like your dream at 25. Maybe the organization doesn't serve you. Maybe you don't serve the organization the right way. Maybe there's some other things that you want to explore. So I ended up moving to the World Economic Forum, which is a platform where private sector and public sector, civil society come and collaborate. We call it multi-stakeholder collaboration for a better society, because we realize that if you want to make the world a better place, just governments can't do it. Just the private sector can't do it. Just civil society can't do it. Just social entrepreneurs can't do it. Young people can't do it alone. We need to all come together and move forward for a better world. Now I can go into that a little bit more later, what I do now. Let me go back to my journey at the UN. And that was the most incredible learning experience. And it was a foot into what I wanted to do in my life. So now you kind of have an understanding of what the international relations sector is, who I am, a little bit about who I am. Feel free to go to my LinkedIn and have a bit of a read of who I am as well. LinkedIn.com/Pavitra Raja. So you can have a bit of a background and my story. And then obviously feel free to send me questions and get in touch with me there as well. So I'm not a typical international relations personnel. I'm not as serious. And some of my coaches and some of my friends are probably going to get mad when I say that, but it's important to have a bit of a sense of humor when you're in this industry, because it's tough. It's not the easiest, especially when you're trying to break barriers and move forward. So it's important to keep that going. Yes, please do ask questions. I'm just giving you a bit of a background, and then we'll get into some Q&A as well. So that's a bit about the journey. Let me tell you how I got finally to the forum, what my background is, which is very, very complicated. I thought I wanted to be a lawyer because I thought that was the way to move forward. That wasn't the right way. Then I went to the UN. That wasn't the right way. I got my first job within the forum. That wasn't the right way either. And now I'm getting to do what I get to do, which is a huge privilege. And I feel like that might be the right way. So maybe what you can figure out already is that I have failed multiple times, and I've also had the opportunity to learn from them. I didn't give up and I said, this is not happening. This is not for me. I'm going to try and move forward, and I'm going to learn everything that I can from this space. And again, it's okay that my dream didn't serve me. Of course, that's very heartbreaking at start, but it's okay that my dream didn't serve me. So that's a little bit of a background. I'm going to try and move on and keep this cohesive and tell you about the international sector as a whole and some of the tips and tricks that you can use to get there. I mean, first thing to know is there's no shortcut. There's no shortcut in getting into the international development sector or international relations sector. What you need to know is that this is quite a tricky sector to get into. What you can do already while you're teenagers or while you're young is a couple of things, which I had the privilege of knowing early on, and then I learned from other people. Now, first things first, you need to build identity capital. This is a very, very important concept. So identity capital is figure out if this is what you want to do. You want to work for the UN tomorrow, right? You're 15, you want to work UN when you're 25. Figure out what are the skills that you need to get there and work on them. So I have a friend of mine who wants to be an actor. She knows that that's what she wants to do, but it's a tough sector to break into. So every single day, well, she works within the talent agency sector right now, but wants to be an actor eventually. So, but every single day she goes to rehearsals, she puts in efforts, she goes to voice training. All of those things culminate to her becoming an actor, a successful one. So it's the same thing here. Figure out what are the skills required for you to get into the international development sector. One of the things is it's really important to speak multiple languages. So is that something that you can invest into now? Figure out where the need is and have that need feed you. This is the best piece of advice I ever got, because the sector is so broad. Figure out where it is. What's your expertise? Do you like working in the health sector? Do you think that's broken? Do you want to change that? Do you want to work in education? What Netra is doing as well, that's part of it, is education and training and skills. Is that something that you want to look at? You can always narrow that down eventually, but it's good to already start to build those skills, right? And we can go into, when you ask me more questions about these skills, we can go into that as well, go into a bit more detail. So that's the second thing, build identity capital. Um, and obviously learn languages. That's very, very important. It's important to know at least 2 languages. As you know, the UN speaks at least 2 or 3, has about 2 or 3 languages. So I'm getting questions, and I like this. How can we build skill? Sorry, let me open that up. Let's have a look. How can we build on skills we already have and find out what we're good at? That's a great question. And frankly, I'm still learning that as well. So one of the things that you need to figure out is, when you wake up in the morning, what are you excited to do? What makes you happy? Do you like to write? Do you like to read? Do you like to research in a particular area? What is it that inspires you or interests you? Is it someone that you like? I recently spoke to someone, and I'll go back to the 3 things that other things that you need to do, but this is an important question to answer. Is often we are told that we need to figure things out and go after what we want, but we don't know what we want. So one of the easiest places to start is look at the person we don't want to be and do the exact opposite. That was something I learned. I'm like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be that person. So let's figure out what they're doing, and let's do the opposite of that. That's one place to start. And then you can slowly figure out, okay, while I'm doing these things that's opposite to this person who I don't want to be, what are a couple of things that I like and I can build on, right? So that's one of the ways of going about it. And it took me some time to learn this. So, hey, I hope this is something that would make sense to you. So let's go back to this. Let's come back to the skills later. I do want to get through some of the important things that you might want to pick up. So I talked about identity capital, which is very important, and what that concept means as well. You need to also learn to build relationships. Communications, networking, building relationships is crucial. Doesn't matter what sector you're in. You might not want to actually go into international development or relations. Any space that you're in, this is so important to have a way of communicating with people, networking with people, and then having them remember you. And there's ways we can talk about this as to how I've implemented or learned some of these skills, but this is very important. And I don't say just network for the sake of, I'm just going to add this person on LinkedIn, but really try and figure them out, send them a question, send them something atypical about them, and get in touch. I get hundreds of LinkedIn additions. But if someone says to me a message, say, hey, I read this article and I thought this was really interesting. Hey, these are my thoughts. Do you want to have a chat? I'll be more likely to go do that, because what I want to do is add value, and that's what the other person wants as well. So it's a relationship that we want to maintain, and we want to even start. So that's very important. Don't just network for the sake of doing it, because people can really see that coming. So we can talk about that again a little bit later. I think I already mentioned the need to learn a new language. Now, languages are so important, and I had no idea. I grew up speaking a couple of languages because my parents are from a part of the world where we do speak 2 or 3 languages. And so my brain was wired differently. And I had, again, the privilege of being around different kinds of people. Growing up in Australia, I grew up around a lot of different people speaking lots of languages. And that was, I was very curious about this. So luckily I got this early on, but I won't say that I'm very good at half the languages I speak, but at least I give it a go. And I wish it's a skill that I learned much earlier in life. So if you want to work for the UN, for instance, good to know French. French is an important language. You might want to live in Switzerland, or if you might need to move to the US, or even if you're living in or working in the offices in Kenya, you might want to pick it up because it's an important official language. So have a look at the institution that you work for. What are the languages that I want to work for, and what are the languages that they speak? Should I pick some of this up? Even if you're just picking it up for your own benefit, languages structure your brain differently. Like, there's so many studies that have found that bilingualism can actually improve brain function, especially your ability to focus and perform multiple tasks. So it's actually a really, really important skill to have. The third thing I'm going to say is, once you're starting to do really well and starting to do really good, you're like, wow, I have this skill, I have that skill, I've got this great job, I'm like, just killing it. Your ego is starting to show up, and you don't want to have that flare. You want to keep that at an absolute minimum, no matter how much you've achieved. So I'm a lawyer. I worked with the UN, worked with the forum. I have all these fabulous friends. I get to travel. Don't let that stuff get to your head, because there's always someone who is doing more and learning more and values the mission. It's not about all of this stuff. It's about who you are and what you want. And it's always about learning forever and serving others. If you're in this sector, you're here because you want to serve people. I'll give you a reason why I ended up, how I figured this out. For me, and this is a concept called systems change. I realized this much later, and I figured this out. When I worked for a law firm, it was the same problem was coming back to me over and over. A doctor actually explained this to me so beautifully. He now runs his own organization. He said, when I was treating patients, the same problem was coming in over and over and over again because the system was broken. So I wanted to go and change the system from up here, not down here. So he went and did a business degree. He came back and figured out the system and decided to change that. So he wanted to work up here rather than here. That's called systems change. So for me, one of my reasons of working in the international sector was just this. I realized that I could do things on the ground, which would be very, very beneficial, but I wanted to figure out what's happening up here that I can add value to and create pathways for a network, and create network for folks that are creating change, real change. Let me see, I've got a couple of questions here. As we all know, this is from Unzela. As we all know, to do something productive, we have to come out of our comfort zone. True that. But how can we manage with our professional field and social welfare and personal things, plus our skills? Sometimes it becomes so exhausting. My friend, that was actually my next point, which is, yeah, keep your ego to a minimum, but also make sure that you take care of yourself. I feel you, I've been there, I've worked too hard, I feel exhausted, and then I start to resent why I signed up for this in the first place. If you want to work in the social change sector, whether it's international relations sector, or if you want to go work for a humanitarian aid organization, whatever you want to do in this space, you have to make sure that the number one thing that you do is take care of yourself. I wish I was told this earlier. I figured this out much later, but I'm glad that I did. It's crucial. Do one thing for yourself that will make you feel you got some rest, whether it's getting some sleep in, whether it's meditation, whether it's spending time with your friends. Learn to switch off and learn to take care of yourself. Whatever self-care means to you. Self-care is such a broad concept. People talk about self-care as though it's getting my nails done and that's self-care. I think it's beyond that. It really is taking a minute to take care of yourself, and very intentionally. So you can get your nails done, but are you taking that minute to really take care of yourself? Is your phone next to you? Are you checking your email? You're not doing that. So be very intentional about it. I love this question. I'm getting more questions. I want to become better at networking, but I feel I cannot make connections with all types of people. How can I fix this issue? That's a loaded question. Why do you want to network with all kinds of people? I think that's my first question to you. When you network, generally, you go into it with a purpose. You go into it with what you want. So when I go into a room and there are hundreds of people, I look at what's my first question, like what's my objective of being here? Why am I in this room? Is it because I want to raise more funds for my initiative? Is it because I want personal development? Is it because I just want to talk to someone and say hello? Like, what's my reason for being there? So one thing people always get wrong by networking is that I go in and I need to meet hundreds of people and they need to be different to me and it needs to be very successful. My challenge to that is try going into a space and meet one person and build a relationship with them. That is way more fruitful than anything else. So I'll give you an example. I wasn't very good at networking. I think I'm a chatty person, but I don't really network per se. And I was in a room of these incredible social entrepreneurs, social innovators. That's a community that I work with at the forum. And they are really, really incredible. They're on the ground making change. And that's why I sit up here to try to give them access in whatever way that I can so they can continue doing the work that they do. And these are late stage systems change leaders who continue to inspire me every day and wake up in the morning knowing that that's what I'm doing, is supporting them in some shape or form. So I was in this room with incredible social entrepreneurs. I walk in. I was a bit overwhelmed. This was one of my first times at the job, and I was lining up for food as I always do. There's a meal I'm going to go. That's the easiest place to meet people as well. So I go to I'm lining up for the buffet, and the lady behind me has a nice bag. So I'm like, oh, it's a really nice bag. And she goes, oh, thank you. And then her and I started talking. We started making jokes. It was fun. We started to share our embarrassing high school stories. Trust me, I've got many. And then turns out later that then we went and sat together. She's like, why don't you come join us at the table? I'm like, yeah, sure. So her and I just hit it off. That always doesn't happen. I've had moments where it's not happened, but her and I just happened to hit it off. We sat down. We continued talking about the most ridiculous things that have happened to us at university and high school. Eventually, I found out she is a CEO of a very, very well-known nonprofit. I had absolutely no idea at that time. And today we're good friends. I, reach out to her for advice. I support her in whatever way that I can. So you never know. And that was the only person I spoke to at that entire session. It was a 2-hour session. She's the only one I spoke to. So when you're networking, don't think of it as to, oh, I need to meet everyone in every shape or form and I need to walk away with like 100 business cards. Don't think of it that way. Think about it. What's your objective? Why are you there? What do you want out of it? And how can you also help these people? I think, how can you serve? How can you add value? One of the things I realized networking as well, if you do want to meet multiple people, is that have short conversations, but instead of you talking, listen. Really pay attention. Put your phone away and really listen. And the most interesting thing about a person is that instead of talking, they listen. And people feel like they were heard. So that's one tip I'll share with you, and I can go into it in detail. I love these questions. Keep them coming. So this is Nimesha. She said, how to identify what we are good at. I personally feel a bit lost thinking of what I am skillful and feeling lost in choosing a career path. Trust me, I feel the same way. I'm not sure how old you are, Nimesha. You can send me a message in a private message, but I feel that way too. I have felt that way since I was a teenager, and I continue to feel that way every single day. You will never know what you want 100% because you as a person are evolving and changing. So you have to give yourself freedom to do that, and allow yourself to realize that your change in interest, your interests may change, and your skills may also need to follow those changes. So, for instance, when I started, my parents, they said, engineering was something that we had talked about, and I was like, yeah, I think I would like to be an engineer. Turns out I didn't want to do that. This I realized in high school. I wanted to be in law. When I then I studied, the career path was for me, the university path was for me to study international relations in undergrad and then law as postgrad. And while I was doing my undergrad, I realized I really liked communications and marketing and digital media. So that's something I did on the side. That actually got me my first job, because I realized while at law school, that was not something that I really resonated with. I resonated with, the writing, the marketing. I worked for a fashion PR firm for like a little while. So I tried all kinds of things, just to make sure that, I was giving myself identity capital. And then eventually when I finished law school, I did go to I worked in policy in the public sector side, which is not what most of my friends did. So I didn't know if that was the right thing. And I tried a private law firm, very interesting. I learned a lot. I gave it my 100%, but again, something that didn't resonate with me. So my advice to you is that don't chase what you're good at or your, the one goal. Chase what you like doing. Try and work around that. Things might change. Try and get the skills for the change. If you don't know what you want, just start with one thing. So I had no idea what I wanted when I was in undergrad or in postgrad as well. I had no idea. I was like, is law the way? Is marketing the way? So just I started doing internships. That's how I started. I worked as a tutor on the side, so I had a little bit of cash coming in. And then I tried to do unpaid and like whatever internships I could do. And that would be another piece of advice, is looking at internships. You can do them short term. You can really get into them. Ideally, they're paid. I don't know if I 100% agree with unpaid internships. And at the UN, my first internship at the UN was unpaid, but I had built a little bit of capital, so I could just about afford that. But I'm not sure if that's something you want to do. but there are options there as well. So then they're starting to create more and more paid internships as well. So I would look at that if you're not sure what kind of skills to build, because it's short term. You can try it. If it doesn't work, you can move on and try something else instead of locking yourself to a new job. I hope I answered your question. If not, like, feel free to write to me. It's helpful. Let's see. Next one is, hi Pavitra. Hi, Rosalind. I've also believed that taking care of yourself with the right attitude mindset is one of the most important. Yeah, that's true. Without comparing yourself to anyone, that's very important, Rosalind. You're so right. We live in the world of social media where, we only see the good in everyone's lives, and we think that's what they're living. We all go through challenges. It's all, up and down in everyone's lives. Obviously, we don't want to talk about all the bad all the time as well. So it's important to keep that in mind and not compare yourself to Instagram photo or whatever else people are doing, to live and be true to your journey. I know it takes a lot of courage, and it takes a lot of, it can be very frustrating sometimes as well, but just trust in the process and trust in yourself. Let's see what else is here. That is very true. When I say keep ego at a minimum, Madiha, I hope I said that correctly, Madiha. Yes, staying humble is so important, because it doesn't matter how much skills you have, how cool you look. Humility is always the classiest thing. And I will share with you, I was recently fortunate to spend some time at Harvard University, and there's a professor there who talks about power. And power essentially to her means access to resources. Whoever has access to resources has power. The problem is, if you have access to too much resources, most leaders start to, and which means they have a lot of power, most leaders start to become a bit, they start to lose their humility. And that is one of the telltale signs of when a leader starts to lose their credibility. So it's very important to always, keep that in mind. And that's why I try and keep myself in check. I've got mentors, I've got friends, I've got coaches who remind me that, it doesn't matter. Your mission is to do, this kind of work. It doesn't matter that you got, well, celebrate yourself, celebrate your achievement, but don't let that go to your head, right? That's not the only thing. Let's see. Is it necessary to keep up with today's trends, AI, NFTs, blockchain, metaverse, to successfully progress in our career? So, Brenna, that really depends on what you want. I try and keep myself well versed in a little bit of everything. So I read this quote a little while ago, and I resonate with this so much, is learn something about everything and everything about one thing. So I love that quote. I think that was Thomas Huxley. And I keep that in mind. I try and keep myself abreast with a little bit of different things. And especially when you're trying to figure out what it is next that you want to do, that's really helpful to know a little bit about all different types of career opportunities. So that's hopefully that one helped. Let's see. I always wanted to do internships, but it is difficult to get it. That is very true. If you want to do internships, it's hard because of networking. Start with, so I'll give you, how I got into the UN. I didn't actually network with anyone. I submitted an application, and I can show you, I submitted over 100 applications at the United Nations. So it wasn't one, it wasn't two, it was 100. Probably even more, because I was applying since I was a teenager. It's like, oh, someone just hire me, please. This is the dream job. And then finally, I think the 100, even afterwards, I was at the UN, I applied for more jobs and I didn't get those. So I've applied for several. I'm very open to admitting my mistakes and talking about my failures, because those didn't stop me. Those actually fueled me. And that's the same for most people. Mistakes don't, and failures shouldn't stop you. You should figure out, if this is something that I really want, this is just a bump in the road, or this is just a lesson that I needed to learn, and let's move forward. So yeah, I understand you're not getting internships. It's frustrating, but don't give up. Sometimes, the UN and most of these bigger organizations, they don't even have time to give you written advice as to what it is that didn't work on the application. So try something different, read blogs, reach out to people. LinkedIn, again, as I said, networking doesn't need to be going into a room and meeting people. You can meet people virtually. There's LinkedIn, there's multiple platforms. There's this platform. This is a networking platform as well. You should be talking to each other, texting each other. If someone's question resonates with you, write to them like, I'm going through that too. How are you dealing with it? So that networking, again, is a very is a concept. We make it a very difficult concept, but really it isn't. It is really reaching out to, and talking to people and figuring out how you can be of value to that person. And then eventually there'll be a value to you as well, because they'll realize that, this person did this for me, perhaps I can support them in my own way. So I understand your frustrations with internships. Don't give up, keep going. If it's in the IO sector, feel free to write to me on LinkedIn. I'll see how I can help you as well. It certainly is not the easiest. All right, dear Pavitra, can we contact you through your email address, as I have done masters in international relations? Ooh, that's a great networking strategy. I appreciate that. I prefer LinkedIn. Write to me on there. I don't give out my email always, but I don't think even Netra has my email, so feel free to write to me on LinkedIn. That's the easiest way. I have a fear of rejection. How should I combat this for networking? Oh my goodness, I have a fear of rejection too. So much. I get rejected all the time. I think, did I just mention to you I got rejected in 100 jobs and UN applications, and God knows how many internships I got rejected from? Several. But you can't let that fear hold you back. You need to, if this is really something that you want to do, then go for it. Don't let the fear hold you back. And I recognize the job market is different. It is harder now. It's not as easy. There's multiple options. There's a lot of different people who are also educated and qualified. But there is something unique about you. Figure that out and learn how to add value. I think that's the biggest skill that I can give you. So I've started to kind of answer questions, Netra. I didn't really follow your strategy, your structure. I got excited by the questions, but maybe what I'll do is I'll add some more value to you, and give you two more things that you need to do as you build your career path here. One is, while you're at university and while you're in high school, even later in life, if you can, learn to build a network or lead a club. I know it sounds really redundant, but trust me. When I was in university, I led two clubs. I just got lucky with one of them, and the other one I applied. There was an interview process, and it was like, honestly, like going to a job interview. And then we managed funds, we managed human resources. It was like a very low stakes business that we were running. And our goal at that time was trying to bring, the very similar to what Netra is doing, was trying to bring interesting women to our club and have them speak about their career paths. And then when we really wanted to specifically focus on women, because this was like a little while ago, where we felt like a lot of the senior positions were men, and women just didn't feel like they could be part of that. And that still exists. As per one of the World Economic Forum reports, the bridging the gender gap will take 99 years, if not more. So we need to, this is again an issue that prevails. So that's something that we did, and it was a nonprofit, it was a university club. So if things didn't work out, it was still not the biggest deal. We weren't losing millions of dollars. We weren't, losing relationships. We had at one point had to have someone, like, let someone go. Again, those are the things that you can do when you're university and fail. It's very low stakes, but at the same time, we felt like we made a difference, which was great. So if you can try and do that, it's great. Even if you want to do a sports club or whatever it might be. I was very nerdy back then, so that's something that I did. And yeah, that's really, really helpful. And then the second thing, I think, what I can mention to you is, I talked about relationship building, keep your priorities. Remember to keep your priorities straight. And the last thing is, people always look at, how do I get better versus how can I add value? When you reframe that, that is going to be a superpower. Instead of going, okay, I need this job because it's going to do this for me, versus I know I have these skill sets. I know your problem is this. Let me come and help you and solve your problem. This is how I could do it for you. Let me add value to you. That is very, very important. And as part of that, always know your self-worth, and always know that if you're going into an internship or a job and it's not treating you right or not giving you what you deserve, you have the voice. You should speak up, and you should always get what you deserve rightfully. Do you guys have any more questions? Keep the questions coming. This is great. And if I'm not getting to your question, do repost it. The chat seems to be moving a bit. All right. Narani says, It's sometimes very frustrating to talk to people about jobs because in culture, people believe women cannot go to man-led jobs. That's concerning. Maybe this is also cultural context. Maybe that's something to play. That comes to play sometimes. But just so you know, um, gender shouldn't hold you back from any job. If it is something that you really want to do, it shouldn't hold you back. Figure out what the skills are, again, as I said, for the role, and keep going. It is harder for women. It is harder for women of color to succeed and move forward. That is not a lie. That is the truth. Sometimes just having that knowledge is helpful and gives you the drive to move forward. We sometimes have to work 2, 3, 4, 5 times harder than our male counterparts. That is the truth. But unless we do it and move forward and change the system from up here, that won't change the way the organizational structure is. So I'm sorry that it's frustrating. I'm sorry that it's difficult. Feel free to, I want to say I want to fight for you, but this is your journey, and perhaps you have to do fight for this for yourself, which is something similar that I had to do. Every day is often a struggle. You get undermined. Sometimes you don't get the credit that you deserve. You don't get paid the same way. It's a journey. It's a process. And all you can do is keep fighting the good fight. Do what you do it well. And once you have the standing, go and have a conversation and say, let's change the system. What we also do in some of our organizations, we have something called a lean-in group, which is always helpful, where we have women come together and talk about their grievances and talk about some of the ways that they could do work better, and then propose a way forward. So those are really, really helpful. So perhaps instead of going to the man or the whoever is not believing that you can do it, go to a woman instead. I understand it's a patriarchal system, so sometimes women can't be of as help as possible as well. But try and form groups, try and find like-minded people and come together and see what you can do together, because there is a power in the collective. All right, there's more questions. How can we stand up for all job injustice against women at work? That's a loaded question, and I don't want to be the single-handedly lead a revolution with you. This is going to be this is something that we all have to contribute together. We need to change systems. We need to start thinking about the entire system, not just the aftermath. Why are women not getting roles in positions? Why are we not getting the skills? That's the byproduct of the patriarchal system. So we need to start thinking about how do we dismantle that, which is helpful for everyone, not just for me. And one of the ways that, again, I suggest is finding like-minded people and coming together and proposing ways. So we work with a lot of social entrepreneurs who are people and social change makers who are those that have created their own organizations, whether it's for-profit, non-profit, and their sole mission is to create some kind of a change. We've got people who work in environment, some people work in gender, some people work in education. We've got people that work in different spaces. And what we saw is they couldn't change the system from within, so they created an organization outside and decided to change the system from outside. We've got people that within our community that with the forum that I get to work with who are entrepreneurs, people who work within systems and try and change that from within. So they start initiatives that are interesting. So you can work for a corporate sector organization and create an initiative from within, or a public sector organization create an initiative from within. It's not easy. It's very, very difficult, but it is something that is possible. So it's important to read up and find these case studies and look at, okay, how do we emulate that, and how do we learn from that and change our own system? So that's one way of looking at it. Sometimes I have a fear of connecting with people. How can I overcome this problem? Isuri, maybe you need to ask yourself, why do you have a fear of connecting with people? Perhaps you feel like you don't have anything that you can add of value to that person. So you need to start thinking to yourself, hey, I'm actually pretty cool. These are the things that I've done. This may be of interest to a couple of other people. And often most people don't want to hear from you. Most people want to hear about themselves. That's a very cheeky thing to say, but that's the truth. So you don't have to be interesting, even if you don't think you are. You just need to go and ask a question, like, what do you do? Why do you do it? Let's talk about your journey. It's sometimes if you make it about them and not about you, it makes it really easy to have a conversation with people. And you don't feel afraid anymore because you're not the one doing the talking, they're doing the talking, you have to listen. I have a colleague of mine who's an introvert, and her and I always have this conversation. She's like, I don't want to I have difficulty going and talking to people. So one of the things that I do is just ask one question, they talk, I listen, and it's really great. And then they walk away and they go, oh, this person was great. They listened to all of my advice and they got everything from me. That was great. I'm going to be in touch with them. So that can be one of the ways of going about it. So firstly, do figure out and feel for yourself that, look, I am someone who has all the skill sets, or if I don't, I need to develop them. I can do this. And then think about adding value to the other person, which is essentially asking them a question and letting them sometimes do the talking. That can be the easiest way. And once you get a little bit of confidence, if you've done that a couple of times, it becomes much easier to network with people. And I will say that I'm not the best networker, but I do really like talking to people and I love building relationships. And that was daunting for me at the start, but I did do that. That my own strategy was, let's ask them a question, figure out who they are. And then maybe, at some point there'll be a discourse. So that's where I am right now. I'm still work in progress, just like all of you. This next one, let's see. I want to create something lasting for other generations. How do I go about that? I feel I have not done enough for myself to help others. Kindly enlighten me. That's a loaded question as well. You're all asking very insightful questions. So firstly, I want to thank you for that. And these are not the easiest things for me to answer. So thank you for putting me on the spot. I'm not here to enlighten you, but I'm here to help you enlighten yourself. And perhaps one thing to look at is, why do you feel like you haven't done enough? What do you do now that you feel like it's not giving enough? One of the things that organizations do is they measure their impact, right? There's like strategies, there's tools, there's KPIs to measure your impact. So I would suggest do something similar for yourself. If you run something, look at, okay, what are my KPIs? What is my impact numbers? Figure those out. And then that gives you a good standing. And then, and in the sense, when you say I've not done enough for myself, how do I help others? Take the time to do the things for yourself. There's a lot of stuff online now, which is free to access, which is easy to get to. So go and add value and first add value to yourself and then figure that out and add value to others. I cannot tell you what you should do because I obviously don't know you, but what I do know is that all of us have the opportunity now with the access to the internet. And we can just go there and just meticulously learn and enlighten ourselves. And then eventually you figure out, yeah, this is for me, this is not for me, and this is how I can add value to the other person. A lot of people ask me about starting organizations. Like I want to create an organization that's going to help the next generation. Go for it, do that. It's not the easiest process, of course, but it's possible. And it's just about having clear goals, missions, right people, and go for it if that's something that you're keen to do. So that's the piece of advice I will give you, Miss Joyce. And I hope I answered that question. That's quite loaded. Now we've got that. I think we're about out of time. I believe this was supposed to be a 45-minute session. Am I right,
Yeah, about time. And I don't see any more questions. Oh, yeah, I don't see any more questions. But if you do have any, not last words, but any final advice or just a piece that you would like to leave them with, now's the time.
Perfect. Thank you. I guess one final, you've heard me speak for 45 minutes, so I'm sure you're happy to let go of me. But perhaps the last piece of advice that I could give you is, I know it's not easy. I know that it's not easy right now. Market is not great. There's potentially a recession. It all seems very doom and gloom. But my suggestion to you is what I suggest to myself every day, is focus on the things that you can control and do that right. Success, achievement is not about the destination, it's about a journey. Really appreciate the journey. See where you're at, see where you want to go, and take time to appreciate that journey. So focus on what you can control and appreciate the journey that you're on. We're all on unique paths and journeys, and hopefully ours will meet at some point. So I think that's it for me, Netra. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a treat.
So this is so embarrassing, but there's one more question here, and I'm just gonna read it out here, and it's how to know who is good enough to you.
I wouldn't know. Um, that's a gamble that you take every day. Uh, but my philosophy is try and be good to them, and they'll likely be good to you. And if they're not, well, that's okay. At least you did your part. So worry more about how, again, going back to my theory on adding value, worry about yourself and adding value to them rather than the other way around. Life just gets easier that way. I have a lot of other questions coming in my way. I don't know if I have time to answer them, or should I do them? Maybe I'll do it over chat. But maybe it's time to let these guys go. I've talked forever.
No, I think most of it is just a lot of really good feedback here. So thank you so much for this lovely session. It was amazingly motivational. And I think the points that you made about humility and being humble are so important. And sometimes we do lose sight of this very important thing. So thank you so much for bringing this up. Thank you, everybody, for attending, listening, and being as engaged as possible. If you need any more details, please visit our website, spunko.com. Everybody have a great day, and thank you so much.